Hey Aquarius, it's Empress Rose here. Welcome to your reading. We're doing an I-ching reading over here on YouTube, and then over on Vimeo we'll be doing a more traditional tarot spread. But to get the I-ching thing rolling, we're gonna cut this deck and pull from the bottom of the deck for an overall idea of where we might be going. We have the Empress, so we're talking about issues and ideas around abundance, around being enough, around being good enough, around having what you need, resources, receiving resources. I think the Empress can receive the resources and then knows what to do with opportunities and resources that she does receive, understands how to invest them, understands how to make the most out of the opportunities that the Empress does receive. So be they, and the Empress can be any, you know, it's not necessarily work related or even relationship related or anything like that. It can be any sort of resource that the Empress can. I feel like this one just makes the most out of what she's got. A bloom where you're planted kind of energy. All right, so now we're gonna do the I-ching reading. I'm gonna throw these coins. We build the hexagram from the bottom up. I'm gonna throw these 3 coins 6 times. So bottom line, line number 1. Oh, right off the bat, a dynamic line. We have 3 heads. This will be yin changing to yang. And I love watching the coins. I don't have a real good system for doing that here, but for you guys to do that. But I love watching the coins sort of, you know, just how, right, spin like that, just how, I don't know, our moments can be just turn a little bit here. Things can change on a dime, I guess is what we call that. So here we have 2 tails, so yin energy, but it's unchanging. Ooh, 3 tails. Yang energy that will change to yin. 2 dynamic lines already, man. 2 heads, yang energy. Line number 5, 2 tails, yin energy. And our final top line of the hexagram, 2 tails, yin energy. All right, I'm gonna go find out which, so we're gonna have 2 trigrams. They're gonna have different names, and they're gonna be one on top, one on bottom, the upper and the lower. And then together, of course, the two grams of 3 are gonna be 6. So I'm gonna go figure out what we got here. Hold on. All right, Aquarius, I've got what I've got here. So, yeah, our top trigram was thunder. That was unchanging. So thunder is loud, noisy. There might be news, there might be information coming in that might be a little alarming or distressing, right? And then our lower trigram had 2 dynamic lines. It started out as mountain, so something really well defined. So a lot of noise about something really well defined. I saw a lot of like health aspects with this, but it could be really anything. But that was like the easiest metaphor that came to me. Like here we have this well-defined, like maybe a well-defined mole or something, but we talk about it, we worry about it, we fuss about it, we go get it checked out, that kind of thing. And then the lower trigram moves to thunder. So we end up with 3 over 3, thunder over thunder. So to me, and then that one, obviously the hexagram is called thunder. So to me, that one is like just a lot of talk, a lot of fear, a lot of frightening information. You know, it's very noisy, but we're not having, yeah, there's just a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise about something. Where first we just have like some little rumblings sort of about something we thought we were clear on, and then now we just have rumblings and rumblings and rumblings. So as far as like how the hexagrams looked, right, we have like the yin lines are broken lines, the yang lines are straight lines, or so the yin lines broken like this have this like channel in the middle for receiving. And the yang lines are just, of course, straight across. So in the original hexagram, there was a channel through, making your way through something. And then in the second set of trigrams, it was more like a repeated pattern or blockages or something sort of separating from the clear way through. So also with I-ching, our first little bit can talk about where we've been, and our second, the hexagram that we changed to can talk about the probability. So, I mean, this is the same way I read tarot. So there's probabilities here. So as far as like what the different segments are, we have earth elements changing. There's movement here, but it sounds like it's, yeah, there's movement in the changing sort of day-to-day aspect of your life. You are also changing. There's more change for you. You're receiving something, possibly messages, possibly information. You're not really going to be in a mode of creating change, making something happen. You're more in the mode of receiving. And then just going back to like the healthcare metaphor, like you're receiving healthcare, you're receiving help, you're receiving information. Yeah, you're doing stuff, but mostly it's in a mode of receiving something. And then as far as like the heavens, the plan, the spiritual realm, it's static. It's not changing. The overall like sort of path you're on isn't necessarily changing. There is a passive receptive state, which I found really interesting because that's what was coming through to me with this Empress. And Empress can also be about health and well-being and all of that. And I had received the information that she was receptive, that there's receiving going on here. That it's right. It's very feminine. It is the yin, the opening, the receiving of the abundance, the receiving of the help. So we had a 3/5 thunder over mountain changing over to thunder over thunder. Our first hexagram was number 62 called fulfillment. And then we read the dynamic lines in the first one. So the literal translation, and one thing I was thinking about as I was doing this is that, right, we only have like pieces of the I-ching. And so I feel like this is actually like sort of a brilliant stroke of history to have sort of this broken divination tool, so that it to me that that parts of it are missing invites intuition, invites the cracks or where the light gets in, invites a little more intuitive interpretation for this. So anyway, so 63 fulfillment, and then we have 2 lines that are dynamic, so we focus mostly on those. The literal translation is, he lifted the front tip of his sash and the tail got wet, no harm done. So what this is talking about is like, I think like what I saw was like crossing a stream, and you lift your skirts or you lift a little bit up, and it gets a little wet because the stream's a little deeper than what you had originally suspected when you set out to cross it. So the idea around this is like, you're a little overwhelmed. You weren't quite expecting quite this much sort of drama or quite this much intrigue or quite this much, you maybe in the metaphor, you were maybe just like, oh, I should get the mole checked out. And then the healthcare provider is like slightly alarmed about the mole. Like, and you're like, wait a minute, I just came to like, just be sure, just to make sure it was fine. And now I'm in a little deeper than I went. And this is a metaphor. This is the metaphor that came to me. I'm not saying you shouldn't get your mole checked out or whatever it is that's bothering you or whatever you think you should get checked out. But I am saying that this is a metaphor. Okay. So a little overwhelmed by something that you thought you could handle. You weren't quite prepared for this. And so this has like a two of Pentacles vibe, where there's just a lot going on, juggling a lot, kind of feeling like you're pretty close to getting overwhelmed by a situation. It's not a problem yet. So again, this is where like our little mole metaphor, it's not a problem yet, but we want to keep an eye on it, or we want further studies and further results and that kind of thing. Like, it's something that you want to keep an eye on. It's not like ruined your life yet, right? But it is more than what you thought was going to happen. So there's something here that's like a little bit scarier or a little bit more overwhelming than what you initially thought. Like you went in for just a basic consult and now you're leaving with like, wait, what? What do I do now? Like, there's kind of like a, that was not what I was expecting. It's a little like worse than what I was expecting, or a little like alarming. So then we move on to line 3, and the literal translation there is King Wu Ding warred against Devil's Land, a nickname for the neighbor. I suspect it was the Mongols, who I'm absolutely fascinated with, love reading their history, and conquered it in 3 years, use not common people. So like successfully battling and subduing. It may take some time to sort of get back to equilibrium. And maybe you've been like trying to charge forward and now you're not able to, like you may have like overscheduled yourself, gone from a period of like not much on my schedule to like, I've really overscheduled myself. Now, how do I pull this back? Now, how do I, but you're going to get through it. You're going to get through it. It's not a problem. You haven't like dropped your balls yet. This is juggling, right? In the Two of Pentacles idea, we have the juggling. We're juggling things. So this is like, you're struggling to keep up with what you've already established here, and you're juggling these balls. You haven't dropped any balls yet. But it may take a little while to clear this this backlog of work, or you may need to get your mole further checked out, whatever. It may take a little while. You might have to battle or fight something. But I love this, use not common people. So the story of King Wu Ding is a bit about he had highly skilled leaders. He only used the best, got rid of people. This is what I'm seeing. Got rid of the advisors that were no good, right? You can tell a doctor, like, they shouldn't be throwing around like big, scary terms without, say, a biopsy or something like that, right? And so just sussing out like your medical professionals, and I also thought of legal, maybe a legal issue that it could just be like a calendar or something like that, but it is like your schedule being full. But it's like, it's okay to delegate, but make sure you're delegating to the best, your highest skilled, and their motivations, right? Sometimes our professionals can be a little bit like cowboy, show-offy, or lazy, or whatever. So we're moving on from the doctor that never gets back to us, or the lawyer that never gets back to us, or the assistant that doesn't show up on time. We're moving on from those, and we're being careful about who we allow into our lives, who we entrust with information, and even a process, like with our medical metaphor. We're being careful to not just listen to somebody's blog about, moles and getting freaked out. We're not, friends don't let friends Google their own symptoms. So we're asking a friend to help us. And the people we're asking to help us, we know that they're competent, right? And professionals are just people, right? So they do have their quirks. They're not exactly ever going to be exactly what you had in mind, or your ideal lawyer, or your ideal doctor, but you should be able to trust these people mostly. And getting a doctor that you trust is the night and day difference between going through something a little terrifying and feeling confident in your team that they can handle whatever comes up, and being like, this joker is going to be the last person to find anything, or the last person to come up with an actionable plan. And even if they did come up with a plan, at this point, I can't even believe a word they say or trust them at all. So the difference between like going through something that might be a little overwhelming with a team that actually is functional versus a team that is that you don't trust, and you're like, I don't know. They're drunk half the time, or they don't show up. Like this is going to be a big difference for you, and it'll be a difference between winning this battle and losing it, or whatever. Now my metaphor sounds a little scary, but that was the metaphor that was coming in. But that's not like a diagnosis or anything. This is just like, make sure, even if you do want to get something checked out, like just suss out who it is you're asking advice for. So that's basically what I'm seeing is like, check your sources. Don't get advice from any old janky person on the internet, right? Nobody's screening this. None of this on the internet is vetted. Like some of the psychological help on here is absolutely batshit crazy, insane. Some of the relationship help you're gonna find on YouTube and other places is so terrible. And verifiably terrible. None of the research backs this up. So don't be taking janky advice from randos on the internet, okay? Or even randos in your like doctor's office or whoever, you know, vet your sources here. Make sure you trust them, at least to the extent that we can trust other people, right? And then this is all changing over to thunder. So thunder over thunder is obviously going to be thunder. So to me, this one, I've done business with this hexagram quite a bit in my life. And it is talking about like, it's just fear, a terrifying situation. We're not talking lightning. We're not talking, there's something that's a little bit scary, but thunder over thunder denotes the possibility or the probability that it's all just talk, that we're just going to go through this process like our mole. We're going to go through this process. You want to make sure you have a doctor that you trust. You want to make sure, you know, if you're getting your mole checked out, you're not just looking up pictures on the internet and diagnosing yourself. You're going into someone that you trust, and it could just all come to nothing. Just be a lot of talk. Maybe you do need to have a biopsy or whatever, but there's a possibility here that this could end up being a lot of talk. Nothing here is saying, therefore, don't go through with this, because we're talking probabilities and possibilities. There's a very strong possibility that this is just a thing you need to go through, and there's just a lot of talk, and it sounds scary. Like this reading sounds scary, but it might not end up being very scary. And there's a good probability that it won't, but you want to be able to sleep at night and you want to know for sure, right? So, so the literal translation of thunder is sign of the sacrifice. Thunder comes roaring, mid laughter ringing, 100 miles trembling, my goblet never spilling. So goblet, we're talking cups here. We're talking, you're the king of cups here. We're talking about you're going to go through this thing and you're going to have a lot of emotional maturity. You're going to maintain your inner equilibrium. You're going to be doing some daily meditations perhaps. And meditation can be a bunch of different things. Sometimes it is about calming ourselves down. Sometimes it is just about noticing what's coming up. There's all different ways to do it. And then I actually do have a playlist of some of my favorite YouTube meditations that might be helpful for you as well. That playlist is public on my channel here. So the translation of this, like, trouble comes. And it could be real troubles too, like lost wealth, natural disasters, humiliation, losses, difficulties, real difficulties. So not just like, as I always experience this, this hexagram thunder as like just a bunch of fear, basically. But this is saying like, okay, shit's gonna hit the fan. Stuff is gonna happen from time to time, whether it's this time or not. We're not looking at that at this point. But your inner strength, clear, steady, this too shall pass, right? So King of Cups, we've got your goblet never spilling. And right, I don't know if we have I don't have a good image of the King of Cups right now in front of me because I wasn't expecting this, but there's usually a storm, an emotional tumult behind him, and he's standing there with his goblet, and the goblet is completely calm. He may be on a boat, he may be in the ocean, he may have the ocean inside of him, a storm inside of him. But this King of Cups, he's got his cup in his hand, his little goblet here. Oh, okay. So his little goblet here, he's got it here, and it's not spilling. The ocean's like this. He's on the ship, but he maintains his equilibrium as best you can, because we are a little overwhelmed here. We are a little overwhelmed. We're acknowledging that. We're seeing that a little too much, right? And then we also got the like lifted the front tip of his sash. Like we got the idea of crossing a river that's a little bit raging and it's a little bit deeper than you were prepared for or expecting. So again, this emotional tumult might actually be a little more intense than what you were expecting, but maintaining your equilibrium. Stuff happens, crap goes on, and this is just like, and you can maintain here. So let's pull a couple cards. Yeah, well, my hand went in those ones. We'll pull a couple oracle cards as we do. All right. Don't let your past hold you back. So how you've dealt with a situation in the past, you don't have to deal with it the same way. Oh, this one is also really important for, like, it's okay to switch horses midstream, get a new doctor if you find like you truly don't trust the help that you do have. It's okay to, you don't have to keep going in that direction. You don't have, just because you started with this doctor or this team, you don't have to continue with them. I'm not sure how it works with legal help, but, you know, or just because you started with this housekeeper, you don't have to keep going with this housekeeper, or you started with this this calendar plan, this planner, you don't have to stick with this planner if it's messing you up, right? So just because you made a commitment or did something, or this is the way you've always done something, you don't have to do things the same way you always did things. Just try a different thing. South Node. Just because you're familiar with it, just because your parents did it that way, just because your parents think that way, just because this is the way you've always done it, out the window. It doesn't have to always be like that, right? Mintonkan, longing for home, belonging, the original light workers. So I love how we have water here, because we've seen water quite a bit through here. Emotional tumult. We have a mermaid, so this is someone who's familiar with emotional movement, who live a very emotional life. So we have longing, belonging, wanting something, wanting, I think, to feel safe and secure, right? Because this water element, it moves, right? And water is stronger than air. It's more present than air. So our emotions, and especially, you know, an emotional being like this, does that, those emotions do move us more strongly possibly than thoughts, than ideas, than any of that. Is the emotional push and pull on us. It feels very physical. I'm thinking too of like hormones flooding the body, of that sort of, right, our blood and our movement of our blood through our body and what the blood contains. It's very theoretical on the one hand, but then it's also extremely physical. Like, it's theoretical just because we don't see our blood and we're not like constantly thinking about how we need to pump our heart the next thing, but it's also very physical. So it's reminding me of just emotions, the way the blood moves through us and the way that our emotions move through us. And then belonging, wanting, there might be lonely times throughout this. You might want, you know, someone with you throughout some of this stuff, but just make sure it's the top people. I mean, the top people, that everyone's just people, but given that, the best. So wanting to belong somewhere, wanting to feel at home somewhere. So Akasha, your guidance is divinely guided. So this may be, I see this card in two ways. One is that something in this reading or some other intuitive situation, maybe some synchronicity that you're experiencing. You may not believe it at the moment, but this is just to say that something that you don't think applies to you, possibly in this reading, actually does apply to you. So that's usually how this card comes up, is like you're on your path and there is like a lot of guidance that surrounds you, right? We are guidance guided, and you're asked to do your leaders because of the highly skilled leaders, superior talents and motivations. So surrounding yourself, I think, with knowledgeable guides. Check your sources. Don't go running off at the first, you know, blog post you see or the first picture you see about, you know, I don't usually talk about personal issues, but I recently had like a broken bone in my foot, and then When I went to the doctor, he was like, oh, what's this thing on the bottom of your foot? I'm like, I don't know, I've had that forever. He's like, well, it's cancer and you need to go get a biopsy. Well, I knew right then, like, this is not a good doctor. Who says that stuff? You don't have a biopsy in hand and you're going to throw that word around? So luckily I was able to get into a specialist right away, and they're like, we're not biopsying this. This is nothing. This is not a big deal at all. And they just removed it and my foot felt better than it's felt in 30 years. So that's great. So that's like a lot of where a little bit of this is coming from, or a lot of like how I see this playing out here. And it may or may not be something for you, but the point is, like, you know, be discerning about the people, about the guides that you have. And you may have a guide, that does bring up something that you don't want to hear or that you don't think applies to you, and it might apply to you. So this is, do go see, but make sure they're a good, I don't know, good doctor. Wow, that was personal. All right, very protective space. I feel like this is a little bit similar to the guidance that you're receiving, and it is divinely guided. Like, there is an expert that you do need to listen to, this expert advice, but there's protection here. Something's being protected. Something is being protected at its own expense. In some ways, this reminds me of, like, you know, never having gotten, like, I found the thing on my foot to be embarrassing. So I protected it and kept it from anyone, and thereby exposed myself to a possible element by protecting my ego. I didn't want to talk about it. And now here I am on it. And the camera, luckily, its channel's small, so so it's not as embarrassing as it could be. But right, there's something that maybe you're very protective of. You could be protective of information that you have. I mean, what's interesting too is we have this like sort of loneliness thing. This could be like a partnership of protection, of caring for each other. But this bird isn't really caring for them. Like, you might be caring for something and protecting something at your own expense. But for some reason, these are coming in together for me today as a bit of a lonely experience, and maybe protecting your ego at the expense of getting the support that you actually long for. But there could be someone here that does want to support you, or there is support here for you. You may not realize you're supported. And then pure nature. Something's unfolding exactly the way it will. This is sort of the puberty card, although I'm assuming you're past that point. But it is a similar thing. Like, you go through this process. You will not be going back the other direction. This is a one-way growth. This is a one-way situation, right? We go from the bud to the flower. We're not putting the flower back in the bud. And there's a sense of vulnerability here. There might be a sense of what is happening to me. I mean, we're seeing a little bit of overwhelm here. What is happening to me? What is this? There might be some feelings of anger, resentment, suspicion. Something suspicious here. But pure nature is about, like, sometimes we turn over a new leaf and then, like, the next thing that happens, it goes back over. Like, oh, I'm turning back that new leaf back over. Let's go back to the old habit. Like, when people try to quit smoking and then they have, like, huge drama happens in their life, and then they're like, you know what, we're just gonna go start smoking again because I can't deal with this the way it is. So this isn't that. This is like whatever change you make now, it sticks. You're not going back. You're not, the next breeze that comes through isn't going to turn this leaf back. You're not going to go back to whatever you were before this process. All right, and then this has become, it's so funny, this deck, I didn't connect with it when I first got it, and it sat there for a long time, but I have really connected with this deck now, and it's one of my faves. Okay, Bluebird Spirit Happiness. I love this. There's some sort of like dream. There's a lot of innocence associated with this happiness. And these are, I've pulled these in sort of as synchronicities to look for, things to look for in your life that are yeah, synchronicities that can help you maybe trigger something. With my appointment, when I finally saw the specialist, I had pulled the hummingbird card in the morning. And then when I walked in the office, they had one of those like LED screens, just huge, right in my face. And it was going through pictures, at a pretty, anyway, when I saw it, it had the hummingbird on it. So it was like a way for me to be like, okay, yeah, I'm in the right place. This is the right office. This is the right specialist for me. I'm going to be well taken care of. It was just sort of a wink from the universe, like, yeah, you're right in the right spot. This is where you needed to be. This is where you needed to end up. So that's what I mean this deck to be for you is this. So bluebird, if you see a bluebird, that's cool. And then eagle, spirit, freedom. I like freedom too. Oh my gosh, both of these have unicorns, which in this deck mean sort of innocence, purity, yeah, a pure state, which is interesting because we have this like change, pure nature. So both of these have like this pure, all three of these have the word pure in it, which, is kind of a funky word, really, like, and it has some funky associations, but we're taking it at its best, purest association here. Pure water, pure clean water, and untarnished, no toxicity here, non-toxic situation, clean, cleansed, right? No germs, no, right? Pure can be a really triggering word for some people, so I just try to be careful for it. So eagles, here we have eagle and bluebird, and this freedom too, I want to pull it in with this card. Don't let your past hold you back. You're free to switch modes, you're free to change. There's also a sense of like having a good overview of something, getting a clear view of something. This is a golden eagle, which are somewhat rare. Yeah, so, and then a little prayer. I think we'll do this. Okay, 2 prayers. Fabulous flamingo, friendship, poise, purpose. I think you're definitely longing for sort of this connection here. Purpose, brilliant feathers and bright beak bring balance back into my life, right? And we were talking about this sort of like off balance, juggling thing. The 2 of Pentacles that I was getting in here earlier often has this like trying to juggle and trying to balance at the same time. So restoring balance, bringing balance into your life. And then we have wondrous whale, introspection, depth, transcendence, right? Both of these, right? This is a bird, and we have 2 bird overview, idea, communication, but this bird is of both the sky and the water. So thought and emotion, balancing the heart and head here. And then, right, we have like this balance pose here. And then we have the wondrous whale, ancient song and soul of the sea, awaken the cosmic awareness within. So, but this is also reminding me of the King of Cups energy we were talking about already. Both of these together come in with, balance, deep emotions, but being able to withstand that and maintain that and continue on no matter the depth of what is happening here. So inner strength, clear and steady, this too shall pass, but there will be like I like this cosmic awareness within, going deep within, understanding yourself and balancing. We're not making war on ourselves. We're not saying like you're unbalanced. We need to fix that. You're not in your own way. You are your way forward. So we're not fixing ourselves or creating a battle within. We're working, first understanding, first unconditional love, whether we ever understand ourselves or not, or in what our responses to the situation. Then understanding ourselves if possible. And then from there, possibly making improvements, but not in a hating on ourselves way. So I hope that was helpful. Over on Vimeo, I'm going to pull the rest of the tarot reading, and I'm just charging a token amount there for, just for the exchange, for the energy exchange value here. So, so if you want to join me over there, you're welcome to. Otherwise, we'll chat again later.